Okay, let's dive in. Picture this spice. It's so incredibly valuable. The color, the flavor, people literally call it red gold. Saffron.
It's got this incredible allure, hasn't it? And yeah, the price tag reflects that. We're talking serious money per gram.
Which, of course, leads to problems. I mean, anything that valuable.
Exactly. The temptation to, well, fake it or dilute it or just misrepresent where it came from, it's huge. Protecting the real deal becomes absolutely paramount.
Right. For the person buying it, paying that premium price, but also, for the growers putting in all that painstaking work, it's incredibly delicate to harvest. So, how do you protect it? Especially when its whole reputation is tied to one specific place.
And that's precisely what we're exploring today. We've got our hands on a fascinating source. It's the Jammu and Kashmir Saffron Act, 2007.
Ah, okay. So, not just some general farming regulation, but a law specifically for saffron from that region.
Correct. And our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack it. What's this act actually trying to achieve? Why do they feel it was necessary? And maybe most importantly, what do these rules mean for the saffron industry there, and ultimately for you, the consumer, when you see Kashmir saffron on a label?
We want to understand the legal structure behind it all. What are the key bits in this law that are supposed to guarantee quality, guarantee authenticity?
It's all about building that trust, legally speaking.
So let's get into the legal framework guarding this red gold, from the soil all the way to the spice jar. All right, so first off, why this specific law? Why did Jammu and Kashmir need a whole separate act just for saffron?
Well, the Act itself states its objective pretty clearly right at the start. It's to provide for regulating the quality of saffron and to ensure its genuineness for sale and export. Simple as that, really.
Okay, so quality and genuineness, protecting the reputation.
Precisely. It's about maintaining that high standard that saffron from this region is known for globally.
And looking at the details, it's Act Number V of 2007. Got royal assent in February 2007, but hang on, it only came into force on March 1st, 2010. That's like a 3-year gap.
Yeah, that is interesting. It suggests they needed quite a bit of lead time to maybe set up the systems, the infrastructure needed to actually implement it. It's not something you flick a switch on.
Makes sense. And it covers the whole Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
That's right. Its scope is territory-wide.
But still, why single out saffron? I mean, surely there are other valuable crops.
There are, but saffron is different. Its value is tied to incredibly specific growing conditions, that particular climate and soil, and, as you said, the sheer labor involved. You need thousands and thousands of crocus flowers for just a tiny amount of spice.
Right.
And that unique combination high-value, specific origin, labor intensity makes it incredibly vulnerable to fraud. Mixing it with cheaper stuff, passing off lower grades is the best, or even bringing in saffron from elsewhere and labeling it cashmere.
Ah, okay, so a general agricultural law just wouldn't cut it.
Probably not. It wouldn't have the specific focus or the teeth needed to tackle those particular saffron-related issues. So this dedicated act acts like a legal shield, really. For the product, for the producers, and for you, the buyer, it's the system saying, look, we've got specific rules, trying to ensure this is authentic.
Okay, protecting the value, the name. And it's a fascinating that the act doesn't just start with the harvested spice, does it? It goes right back to the land itself.
It absolutely does, and that's a really key part of this. The government can officially designate specific areas as saffron belts. The act even names Pulwama and Doda districts, but allows for others too.
Saffron belts. And the rule for land inside these belts is, well, it's strict. It basically says you cannot use this notified land for anything except growing saffron lulus. Those are the corms, the bulbs, right?
Exactly. It's a powerful legal move to preserve that specific agricultural land just for saffron. Talk about protecting the source.
Is there any flexibility?
Very little. There's one narrow exception. An owner can use a small patch, no more than 2 canals, that's about 1/4 an acre, to build a house for themselves.
Just a house.
Just a house. And even then, you need prior permission from the deputy commissioner, and they had to consult with the director of agriculture.
Wow. So definitely no commercial buildings, no apartment blocks. It explicitly forbids using saffron land for commercial or residential construction, or even brick kilns. You can't just change the land's purpose.
No fundamental changes allowed. It underlines how critical this specific land is considered. And if you break those rules,
What's the penalty?
it's pretty serious for a land use violation. Imprisonment up to 1 year and a fine up to 10,000 rupees. That shows the commitment to keeping that land for saffron.
Right, so the ground itself is protected. Then what? Once the saffron's grown, who gets to trade it?
Well, the Act clamps down on that too. To manage the trade and ensure accountability, anyone dealing in saffron, buying, selling, processing, they have to register.
Okay, mandatory registration. How quickly do they need to do that?
Pretty fast. Within a month of starting their business, or within 2 months of the Act coming into force initially. Though the registering authority can grant extensions.
And how long does the registration last?
It stays valid unless it gets canceled. So it allows for ongoing oversight. And importantly, if someone's application is rejected, there's an appeal process. They can go to an appellate authority within 2 months.
So it creates a kind of official list of players in the saffron trade, makes it traceable.
Exactly. Adds a layer of control and transparency to the supply chain.
Okay. Protected land, registered traders. Now, the big one. How does the Act ensure the quality? How do you know you're getting the good stuff?
This is where the grading and quality control sections are really key. The government, working with the Bureau of Indian Standards, the BIS, sets up specific grade designations.
So like grade 1, grade 2, that sort of thing?
Precisely. But these aren't just names. The Act requires defining exactly what constitutes each grade, the quality parameters, and specifying the official marks that represent those grades.
And using these marks is
Compulsory. This is crucial. Section 11 is very clear. Saffron shall not be sold or distributed within the state unless it's marked with the prescribed grade designation. Period. No mark, no legal sale.
okay, that's a strong rule. What happens if someone ignores it? Sells unmarked saffron.
There's a penalty for that. Imprisonment for up to 6 months and a fine up to 10,000 rupees. They're serious about making sure that official grade is visible.
And it's not just about setting standards on paper, right? There must be enforcement.
Absolutely. The Act empowers enforcement inspectors who come from the Department of Agriculture. Their job is specifically to implement the Act's provisions out in the real world.
And what can these inspectors actually do?
They have pretty significant powers. They can take samples of saffron from pretty much anywhere, sellers, retailers, wholesalers, even directly from buyers or transporters.
Right.
If they suspect something's wrong, like a violation of the Act, they can seize the entire quantity of saffron right there.
A whole lot. Wow.
Yep. They can send those samples off to designated quality control labs for official testing. They also have the power to enter and search any premises, shops, warehouses, wherever, if they have reasonable grounds to believe an offense is being committed.
So they can just walk in.
With reason to believe, yes. And they can order a trader not to dispose of their stock for up to 30 days while they investigate, or just seize it outright. They can examine all the records, the books.
And it gets even more serious, doesn't it?
It does. If necessary, they're authorized to break open containers or even the doors of premises to carry out their inspection or seizure.
Those are some serious enforcement teeth for, a spice regulation. It shows they mean business.
Definitely. And trying to block an inspector from doing their job also carries a penalty up to 6 months in jail and that 10,000 rupee fine again.
Is there any recourse if a trader thinks an inspector has overstepped?
Yes, there's an appeal process for that too. They can appeal an inspector's order to the relevant director of agriculture within 30 days.
Got it. So it's this combination of clear standards, compulsory marking, and inspectors with real authority to check and enforce. It aims to make the quality claim stick.
That's the idea, to ensure it's not just marketing fluff, but legally backed and verified quality.
Okay, so that covers local sales and quality within Jammu and Kashmir. What about moving saffron outside the region, like for export? And I heard something about packaging, too.
Yes, the Act addresses movement and presentation as well. For saffron destined for export, there's a requirement for a phytosanitary certificate.
A phytosanitary certificate? What's that?
It's essentially a plant health certificate. It's issued after samples are tested, verifying not just the grade and quality, but also confirming it meets plant health standards for international trade.
Okay, makes sense for exports. What about bringing saffron in? Can people import dried saffron into Jammu and Kashmir?
That's regulated too.
Yeah.
Anyone planning to import dried saffron has to notify the Director of Agriculture a full month beforehand. They need to specify the quantity and, crucially, the source where it's coming from.
Why regulate imports so carefully?
Well, it seems likely it's to prevent imported saffron, which might be cheaper or of a different quality, from being mixed in with the local product or somehow passed off as genuine Kashmir saffron. You have to declare it, and then it has to be sold in a prescribed manner.
Right, protecting the local brand integrity again. And the packaging rules you mentioned.
Oh yeah, they are incredibly specific. The Act actually lays out the required container sizes. For export, It mandates papier-mâché or plastic boxes in sizes like 50 gram, 100 grams, 200 grams, all the way up to 1 kilogram and 2 kilograms.
Wow.
For local sales, it's smaller plastic boxes, 5 grams, 10 grams, 20 grams, 40 grams. And then for industrial users, like food processors, bigger 1 kilograms and 2 kilogram boxes.
That's amazing detail. And what about the labels on these boxes?
This is really key for the consumer. The law states that the grade designation and the contents specifically mentioning the chemical composition must be pasted right there on the box or packet.
Chemical composition, too. So, like the levels of curcumin for color, picrocrucin for taste.
Presumably, yes, the key chemical markers that define saffron's quality according to the standards.
So the law dictates the box size, the material, and requires detailed quality info on the label.
It's quite something, isn't it? It shows how far the legislation goes to try and ensure transparency and give the buyer verifiable information, aiming to build that trust through really clear, standardized presentation.
Okay. Land protected, traders registered, quality graded, movement controlled, even the box is specified. With rules this comprehensive, there must be some serious penalties for breaking them.
Oh, absolutely. The Act lays out a whole range of consequences, and they vary depending on what rule you've broken and how serious it is.
Give me some examples.
Okay, so say someone uses an official grade mark without being authorized to do so. That could mean up to 1 year in prison and a fine of up to 20,000 rupees.
Right.
But interestingly, if someone imports saffron from outside and then deliberately marks it to make it look like local Kashmir saffron.
The origin fraud we talked about.
Exactly. The prison term is still up to 1 year, but the potential fine jumps significantly higher, up to 50,000 rupees.
Wow. Okay. So they take faking the geographical origin very seriously.
It certainly seems that way. Counterfeiting an official grade mark also carries up to 1 year and 20,000 rupees. Selling saffron that's already been misgraded or maybe misbranded somehow, that's up to 6 months and a 10,000 rupee fine.
And what if you just try to break the rules or help someone else do it?
Attempting or abetting any contravention can also lead to penalties up to 1 year imprisonment and a 10,000 rupee fine.
Does it say anything about companies? Often the responsibility gets stripped there.
Yes, it addresses that. If a company commits an offense, the person who is in charge of and responsible for the business at the time can be held guilty, along with the company itself. Though there is a defense if they can prove the offense happened without their knowledge or that they exercise due diligence to prevent it.
Okay, that covers corporate liability. Now, what about adulteration? That seems like the biggest threat for a high-value spice.
You're right, and the Act treats it with particular severity. If you adulterate saffron or knowingly sell adulterated saffron within the state, with the damage, potential imprisonment for up to 2 years, plus a fine up to 20,000 rupees.
2 years. That's the highest prison term mentioned so far, right?
It is. It really underscores how seriously the law views tampering with the purity and quality of the saffron itself.
So what exactly counts as adulteration under this act? Is it just mixing it with something else?
It's defined quite broadly, actually. It covers a lot of ground. Adding any substance that could be harmful, mixing or substituting it with anything inferior or cheaper.
Like corn silk or other threads dyed red.
Exactly that kind of thing. Also, if someone removes constituents like extracting some of the valuable compounds, which then affects the quality, or even if it's just packed or stored under unsanitary conditions that could lead to contamination or make it deteriorate.
Okay, what else?
Mixing different grades or different brands together, but selling them under a single, potentially higher grade or brand name counts. And more generally, if the quality or purity simply falls below the prescribed standards for the grade it claims to be.
So that definition is pretty comprehensive. It seems to cover almost any way you could cheat the consumer or compromise the product integrity.
It really does. It's a strong definition aimed squarely at protecting the genuine article.
Does the Act mention anything about price?
Yes. It gives the government the power to control prices. They can fix maximum or minimum prices for saffron if needed. And if you ignore those price orders, you could face up to 6 months in prison and a 10,000 rupee fine.
And who actually brings these cases to court?
The Act allows prosecutions to be initiated by the government or the registering authority or an authorized officer. But interestingly, it also allows the person actually aggrieved by the offense, say, a buyer who got cheated, or even a recognized consumer association to initiate proceedings.
So consumers have a direct route to complain legally.
It appears so. And the cases are heard by a judicial magistrate, but specifically one ranked as chief judicial magistrate or higher.
And one last legal point, I see something about an overriding effect.
Ah, yes, that's a common clause in specific legislation like this. It basically means that if any other existing law conflicts with the provisions of this Saffron Act, the Saffron Act takes precedence. Its rules prevail for matters concerning saffron regulation in the territory.
Got it. So the range of penalties, the special focus on adulteration and origin fraud, the broad definition,
Yep.
it all paints a picture of a very serious attempt to build a legal fortress around this spice.
Exactly. It's designed to deter bad actors and build confidence in the authenticity and quality of Jammu and Kashmir saffron.
So wrapping up this deep dive into the Jammu and Kashmir Saffron Act of 2007, wow. It's clear this isn't just a token law, it's this incredibly detailed legal framework.
It really is comprehensive. We've seen how it starts right from protecting the specific land where saffron can be grown.
Mandating registration for anyone involved in the trade.
It's setting up strict quality grades, making those grade marks compulsory, and empowering inspectors with some pretty significant authority to enforce it all.
Right down to specifying exact package sizes and requiring detailed labels, including chemical composition.
And underpinning it all is a whole system of penalties with particularly tough consequences for things like adulteration or pretending imported saffron is local.
It's a fascinating case study, isn't it? A single law showing the length as regulators will go to protect the identity and value of one specific, incredibly precious agricultural product.
It really highlights the connection between law, geography, quality, and economics for these high-value commodities.
Which leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? Looking at this intricate legal scaffolding, regulating the soil, the trade, the quality, the box it comes in, what does the sheer level of detail tell you about how important and maybe how vulnerable geographically specific products like saffron are on the global stage?
It definitely raises that bigger question. How much does this kind of intense legal regulation actually shape the identity, the reputation, and ultimately the trustworthiness of these cherished products from specific places all around the world?
Yeah, think about other things you value. Maybe it's a specific type of cheese or wine or coffee or olive oil. Do you know if similar protections exist? How does knowing or not knowing about that legal backing influence your confidence when you buy it?
It's certainly something to consider.
Yeah.
This Saffron Act gives us a really clear window into the legal machinery working behind the scenes to try and guarantee that red gold is exactly what it claims to be.